In this video, I'm going to share with you 12 lessons that I learned from making a bad hire. And this is exactly what you need to look out for when you're trying to let people on to your team. Because like they say, one bad apple can ruin the whole bunch. And that's literally what happened with me. I hired a person that literally made me hate my own company, didn't want to show up to my meetings, didn't even want to deal with the team. The culture literally went down. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. Hopefully you can take away some of these key lessons and apply it on your next hire. And with that being said, we're going to dive right into it. So lesson number 1, which is avoid hiring friends of team members. So what happened with me is, if you have an applicant that was referred by a current team member, like your entire perspective on that person is tainted. You go way softer on them on the interview. You already have this halo effect on this person, and it's really impacting and clouding your judgment. At least that's what happened to me. So this is such a biased process of hiring friends of team members. I would definitely not recommend it. Now, in the future, if I feel like a team member has a friend that would be a great candidate, I would just say to my team member, like, hey, why don't you have them submit an application on our recruitment funnel and do not tell me their name. This way, it's like a fair deal, completely blank slate, and that bias isn't going into play. Lesson number 2 is trust your initial judgment and spot red flags early on. Look, if you've hired team members before, or anybody in general, right, you can tell like there's certain small red flags that you catch on. For example, I was once trying to hire a setter, and it was a young kid, I think like something in his like early 20s, and he was still living with his parents in his family home. And right away, I kind of knew like, you know what? This person might not have the most stable home environment because the parents want him to go to college and follow that traditional job route, but he wanted to become an appointment setter and make money himself. And I knew there'd be inner conflict. I did dodge that bullet, but in another hire, the person was much older, but had a shaky life at home. And if I would have spotted that, I would have known like, okay, that's going to impact their mindset and how they show up every single day. Because if they're in a negative, toxic environment, it's going to affect their work life. Another thing about red flag is also see if the prospect or the candidate or applicant, whatever you want to call it, do they seem like clear in terms of where they want to go down in their life? What is it they want out of their career? If it doesn't seem like they have it all figured out, that's a red flag. Because if they're saying, hey, I want to do X, Y, and Z, but I'm also interested in this, and if that doesn't work out, I'll go in this. This is a person that's a job hopper, confused. These are red flags you should be very weary of early on because, they might not be here for the long term. This might just be a quick job or stint, just a paycheck for them. Lesson number 3 is don't be fooled by former job titles. Boy, did I fall for this one, right? Fancy job titles don't really equate to competence. This is something that I had to learn the hard way. Like people in the corporate world, I feel like they throw around titles willy-nilly. You're going to get titles that are like executive level titles, but then you bring them onto a startup and you're like, wait, this person actually doesn't really know much about sales or advertising or marketing, even though they had this big shot title on their resume, on their LinkedIn. So again, be wary of that. Like titles don't necessarily equate skills and experience. And in retrospect, I should have really tested for the skills and experience. Like, do you actually know what you say you know? And so doing more of a skills test is going to be important. Lesson number 4 is avoid paying a premium for irrelevant experience. Now, hiring someone with relevant but not exact experience can be costly. It's often better to train an amateur who fits your company culture and processes. So what do I really mean by avoid paying a premium for irrelevant experience? I was hiring a client success manager, and this person that I was thinking about hiring didn't really have the exact experience of being a client success manager. They had experience in marketing. And I really thought, like, hey, I'm a marketing company. And if I hire somebody with marketing background, it's going to work out really well. I just need to teach them a few things about being a client success manager. But again, I paid a hefty premium for an experience that didn't really translate over into this role. So that's what I want you to avoid as well. Like, unless they literally had the same role in a different company and they excelled at it, then sure, maybe pay a premium for it. If not, hey, don't. Lesson number 5 is do the job yourself first and then build SOPs to train them on what to do. This way you really have those SOPs and KPIs that you're measuring against. This is kind of like, hiring a sales rep and expecting them to come in, build your entire sales process, build the entire script, the objection handling scripts, and all that stuff. Like, sure, we're always looking for that A player, that magical unicorn, but in reality, it doesn't really happen. So you always want to make sure you do that job yourself first and then build proper SOPs and train them. When I look at my best hires versus my worst hires, the worst hires were always like, hey, I trust you. Why don't you come in? I'm going to give you full reins on this. Go ahead, do this. And they literally sucked. Versus the people that I gave a lot of SOPs and instructions and trainings on, they literally shined. So I would literally say, like, yeah, a lot of us try to be quick in terms of hiring because we don't want to do a particular job. But if you haven't mastered it yourself, then chances are you're not going to hire the right person. Now, this brings me to lesson number 6, which is shadow and ramp up new hires gradually. This is, again, another mistake that I did because I got suckered into believing because somebody had experience, I don't really need to shadow and ramp them up, that I can give them a lot of trust and control from day one. Hey, in retrospect, kind of foolish, but that's exactly what I did. So I would say there should be some sort of a shadowing and ramp up process. And I would also add to that now if I'm hiring people, I'm going to let them know that there is going to be some sort of a 30, 60, 90-day probationary period where we're going to see if this is going to actually work out mutually. If not, no worries, we're going to part ways. But yes, you definitely want to shadow them, provide feedback, and then gradually increase their responsibilities. Because the mistake that I made was giving them a ton of responsibilities from day one, where they started to kind of break down and mentally not operate because they were under so much kind of stress. It was kind of like drinking from a fire hose. That one, totally my fault. Lesson number 7 is don't hire when you're desperate, because desperation leads to poor hiring decisions. It's kind of like you just want butts on seats. You just want somebody to fill the role, and you start cutting corners. You start becoming sloppy because you're desperate. You just want somebody in that role like tomorrow, yesterday, if it's possible. So I think the best thing would be to anticipate hires and maybe hire them a little bit earlier than you actually need them. This way you can have that slow ramp up, shadowing, training process. And then a month later, maybe 2 months later, they're actually hitting the ground running. They're kind of going full force. And then lesson number 8, hire to replace yourself, not because you hate a task. This kind of goes hand in hand with lesson number 5, which is do the job yourself first and then build SOPs. The jobs that I really hated, that's when I was like, you know what? I just want somebody to come in and work their magic and do whatever the heck they do. And so I never have to worry about this again. But again, in retrospect, people aren't all that. Or maybe that's a faulty mindset of mine because I haven't found a hire that has been like that magical unicorn in terms of like coming in and totally building something from scratch and operating it perfectly. But what I would say is hire someone because you're excelling at a task and you just need to delegate and offload it because you already have those systems and SOPs. Somebody just needs to come in, follow them. Sure, over time they can optimize and improve it, but you don't want to hire somebody because you hate the task, you've never done it, you don't know what to do with it, and you just want somebody to come save you. Lesson number 9 is prioritize mindset and culture fit over skills. This will definitely affect how the entire team interacts, because if you do hire somebody based on just their skills and experience, but they don't necessarily have that mindset or culture fit, you're going to start to hate the entire dynamic, because again, one bad apple ruins the entire bunch. And what I've really found is it's easier to teach somebody skills, right? You can teach somebody sales, media buying, dealing with clients, operations, all of that stuff. But it's harder to change somebody's mindset, especially if they've been rooted in a certain way of being over many, many years. It's going to take some time. It's a longer learning curve because they have to unlearn how they currently are and then learn a new way of being. So that's been more difficult than actually teaching somebody like raw hands-on skills. So I would always say, like, for me as well, moving forward, I'm going to be looking for a lot of like mindset and culture fit. Like, do we vibe together? Do we gel together as a team, as a unit? If yes, then great, come in. And I always take a person that has a little bit less skills but has a better mindset over a person that has all skills and no mindset. And then lesson number 10 is don't make the job sound easy. Literally, I feel like with YouTube, people promising make 10K in freaking 30 days, 20K, 30K, all these outrageous claims that people are selling pretty much consumers into biz op opportunities. People's expectations of income has become totally crazy. They just want to have a paycheck or get paid without doing a lot. So in this day and age, you really have to make the job sound super difficult and almost scare people away that are just looking for that easy paycheck. And explain what the challenges are going to be. Explain, that it's not going to be easy. Let them know that you have very high standards and try to scare people away, try to weed them out, and then only allow in the people that are in tune with your mission, vision, and culture. Lesson number 11, document performance from day one. So you want to keep track of both positive and negative behaviors, and regular feedback is also going to help them grow and prevent issues from escalating. This is something that I always did a poor job of, which is like documenting performance rather than like talking to them on a Zoom call and just giving them feedback. You want to actually document the feedback and see, have they actually implemented that feedback? If not, you can go back and say, hey, I talked to you on X date and gave you Y feedback. How come it's been like 30 days and you still haven't changed? And now you can see a sequence or a pattern of their existence and seeing how they actually operate. Because a lot of the times, as a founder, you're going to forget these things that you even had that conversation. So you're going to be making a lot of judgments and decisions based on feelings because your memory fades, and you're just going to be like, I feel like they're not really doing stuff, and I tell them even though they're not really improving. And final thing is lesson number 12, which is trust your gut and fire when necessary. If a hire isn't working out, trust your instincts and make the tough decision to let them go. Because I personally have found that I have fired people a month or two late. It's always this dilemma of, oh, do I let them go? Do I keep them? Because, as a founder, you're always like trying to look out for the team and you want to have good people on your team. And in the beginning, firing people is very uncomfortable because, at least for me, it was, because you're not used to firing people because these are just your first 5 to 10 hires, right? Of course, I imagine that over time, firing people becomes easier, but what I've really learned from this experience is if you're even thinking about letting somebody go, just freaking let them go. It doesn't get any better. Like if things were going to get better, then they would have already. But if you're thinking about a team member and it's been, let's say, 30 days and you're constantly thinking about it, then they're causing you more headaches than it's worth. So again, my kind of rule of thumb is they should not be causing me more headaches. I should not be thinking about them constantly. if whether they are valuable or not valuable, if they should stay on the team or not stay on the team. If in doubt, leave them out. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you get any value from this video, hit that subscribe button and I'll see you in the next one.